Bonjour. Thank you for coming to my session. There was a little misunderstanding with the time. I thought it was 45 minutes originally. Well, it's just 15 minutes, so I'll try to see how much I can cover. So today we'll be talking about the essential understanding of open source community health and metrics, moving beyond surface signals to real project health. So a lot of times we judge the health of projects based on very surface level metrics we can find out there. A lot of times we go with the stars to judge popularity of an open source project. They have lots of stars on GitHub. You want to look at their commits, you want to look at issues to judge whether a project is active or not, but most times these metrics do not really tell the full story. So my name is Ijeoma Onwuka, and I will be talking about community health metrics that we need to, look at to judge the health of a project. So I'm a community and event coordinator at MLOps Community, and I'm a D&I badging reviewer at Chaos. I have been badging for events and projects for the past 3 to 4 years at Chaos. And basically what we do at Chaos is we develop metrics to judge open source community health and, yes, project as well. So we'll get to that part. And I'm a K-drama and C-drama lover as well. So how many of us here are maintainers? Do you maintain any project? Okay, awesome. Okay, this talk is mostly for maintainers, actually. So I pulled this report from the Linux Foundation TideLift 2024 State of Open Source Maintainer Report. It said that, okay, while 80% plus of software in the technology, in the tech space, is majorly open source, but most times some of these open source projects have maintainers that are unpaid or that are burnt out. They are considering to quit. We see lots of issues with maintainers getting tired of managing projects because they don't get enough compensation that they need to keep sustaining this project. Most of them are just 1 or 2 people managing a particular project, which could be a lot. So we get to see these reports all the time. And that's basically what this talk is all about, right? So now we want to look at activity is not equals to health. So most times what we see as an activity on a project does not necessarily tell the full story about what that project is going through, inside. So most times we could see high commit velocity, spikes in issues, but that could mean unclear docs. There are some projects that do not have very great documentation. I know we've come a long way. Way back 2018, 2019, you would see lots of open source projects that do not have readmes on GitHub. You want to contribute, you don't even know where to start. You don't even know what the project is all about, but we've come a long way. We've seen projects make improvements on that part, but that doesn't mean there is, the job is done. We still have projects that need to improve. So those are also issues that we need to fix to actually help maintain this project. And then most times we could see many PRs, but that could indicate poor review practice. It means maybe people are not actually reviewing these PRs. And on the flip side, you could see a project that has very few commits, low issue counts, slow releases, very small team, but dedicated. And it could look like, nothing is going on here. I do that sometimes. I check a project. I want to see when was the last time someone made a commit or a PR. And I'm like saying 6 months ago, 8 months ago. I'm like, nothing is going on here. Well, maybe a lot of things could be going on in the background as well. So I love to bring this case study of what happened way back in 2024 of a maintainer that was managing these executives. He was burnt out. It was just a single maintainer. The interesting thing about this case study was how it happened. A maintainer was managing this particular project. It was burnt out, no help, and then someone came in, said, okay, I'm going to help you manage the project, made a lot of comments, and we didn't know this person had an ulterior motive. And when they got access to maintain the project, they planted a backdoor, which would have been, very disastrous because this is an important project to the Linux distros. And had it been, it wasn't discovered way in 2024, it would have been distributed to all the distros. So, and this is what metrics would have showed us if people actually paid attention. So on the surface, the project was showing active commits, a new contributor joined, there was regular releases, issues were being addressed. So we are going to say, yes, this project is actually very healthy, but then on the flip side, it was just for maintainer. So it was at risk, a huge risk, because what if this maintainer decides to say, okay, I cannot do this anymore? What would have been the case? And it also shows there was no governance model, no documentation, because you cannot just come to a project and become a maintainer. There needs to be processes, for you to get to that level. So the verdict is this project was at risk. So how do we bridge the gap between visible activity and real community health? I love to go with two foundational ideas, and they are sustainability and survivability. Then on the sustainability part, what are the things you can do to sustain a project? And that comes to contributor experience. How do you welcome newcomers? Do you even get newcomers at all? Because for a project to be sustainable, there needs to be an influx of new people on that project. Because one day, the old maintainers are going to retire, they're going to go do something else. Who is going to take up the leadership mantle? And then documentation quality, we are looking at your onboarding, your communication style. Do people get responses on time to their PRs, to their questions? Or is it like someone is talking to the void, they're asking, how do I contribute to this particular working group, and nobody is responding? So these are some of the issues that you need to look at to your project to make sure that it's sustainable. And then survivability is, can the project survive a crisis or sudden change? If a maintainer decides to quit tomorrow, is that going to be the end of that particular project? We're also looking at organizational diversity, governance strength, succession planning. Do you have a documentation where someone could actually see how they can get from point A to point B, or from being a user to a committer or to a maintainer, stuff like that. And that brings us to the CHAOS project. CHAOS stands for Community Health Analytics in Open Source Software. It's a Linux Foundation project that was established in 2017. And what we do at CHAOS is we develop metrics, metric models, practitioner guides for maintainers, OSPOs, community managers to use to measure the health of their communities, of their projects. Over the past few years, we've developed up to 90 metrics or more. We have about 11 practitioner guides, even on how to access the variability of a project. If you want to sunset an open source project, we have a guide for that as well. If you want to measure the impact of funding on your project, we have a guide for that as well. And then we have working groups, about 10 plus working groups, DI, OSPO, science, funding, AI, in case if you're interested. And these are the links if you want to check it out as well. And then we have tools, the Grimo Lab and the Augur. These are two Python library-based tools that you can use to visualize. It's very technical, so I didn't want to go very deep into it because it's going to take all the time. But you can check it out. I have added the necessary links as well. And then these are some metrics I pulled out from the CHAOS Data Health model that we can quickly look at. So we have the contributor absence factor. How many people make 50% of contributions? We see a lot of projects, very active, but it's just few people that are pulling those activity that you see. Just very, very few people. The rest are just in the background. That's not great, but then we have the elephant factor, we have the time to first response, How long does it take for a human to respond to an issue or to a PRO or to a question in your community? Then we have the change request closure ratio. We have the organizational diversity. If your project is dependent on organizations contributing to it or supporting it, how many organizations are contributing to it? How many organizations are supporting? If it's just one, what happens when they decide not to do that anymore? Is that project going to survive? And then we always say numbers need narratives, because if you look at numbers, most times they do not really tell the full story, like I said earlier. So you could say a project is dying, but then probably they've reached their stability, they are done building. You could say a project is growing very fast, but then it could be that they are very confused, they don't know what they are doing. You could say a project, someone is very dedicated, but then it could be that they are burnt out, they are tired, but then because they are very passionate about this project, so they have to keep going. And I always love to say that health is a lived experience. So most times we talk about projects, we really do not look at the communities holding these projects. And then I pulled this from the Tide Lift 2014 and the Eclipse Foundation Open Source Congress 2025 report. So we have a succession crisis at hand. We've seen lots of projects that do not have people to take over the leadership role. We had this conversation yesterday at the diversity launch, where we see projects that have, and we are trying to say we do not want projects to get to this level where you are trying to retire, but you don't have mid-level or experienced contributors to take over leadership roles. So how are we going to do that? How do we make sure that projects do not get to that level? I'm going to come to that. And then I'm also pointing out that health is beyond code. So as from research, we've seen that a lot of open source projects depend on non-code contributions. So we want to make sure that projects do not rely solely on just code. So what are other parts of project contributions that actually make a project whole, like the documentation, the community management? We've made a lot of improvement in that aspect. Mentorship. So we've seen projects trying to mentor people now. We've seen projects take community management seriously, social media management, because if people want to contribute to your project, your community needs to be active, it needs to be healthy. People need to find you as well. Some projects cannot be found. People ask me, I want to contribute to open source, and I'm saying, do your research. But then your project can't be found. How can someone make contributions to it? And we also need to learn to ask better questions when it comes to the health of a project. And what does healthy actually look like? It looks like this. Instead of just one person, leading the project, we need to have 1 or 2 or 3 more. Your onboarding needs to be great as well. Have good first issues for newbies to start with, something they could try their hands around. So just actually make it easy for people to contribute to your project. And you could start with this as well, having a contributor ladder where someone comes to your project, they know how to move from point A to point B, from being a user to a contributor, to a committer, to a maintainer. Some people take open source seriously, like a full-time job. They want to be sure that, someday they could sit at the board or become a maintainer. So make it very clear to them that you could actually be whatever you want to be on this project, as long as you keep showing up, you keep doing the work, and you're very committed. And that's why you become a committer. So because of time, I'm rushing a lot. So what can you do today? You can evaluate projects differently, ask about sustainability and survivability, and not just about, how many stars do they have and all that. You can also check out the Chaos Practitioner Guides to access projects. You can use it to understand how to, measure this sustainability of different projects. And then you can also join us as well. We are open to new members. You can also join us to develop these metrics, because we keep developing new metrics, and with the influx of AIs and maintainers complaining, people using AI to, draft PROs and all. We are going to keep working on new metrics that we can use to measure that as well. So we hope to see you on the project. I think that's the end of my presentation because of time. My time is up. So if you have a question, you can meet me outside and, I'm going to answer all of that. Thank you.